What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto finds Sakura is injured and raw ed? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. Sakura jerked the knot of her Anbu-styled shoes before standing up to look at herself in the mirror. Today is the day Naru-kun and I stop hiding, she thought with joy as she checked out her new outfit. She wore black shoes that went up her legs only to stop just short of her calf, and she wore non-reflective metal shin guards much like the village Anbu. She wore a dark pink almost red sleeveless dress that stopped just above her knees, with slits down each side starting at her hip to free up movement. Under the dress and visible through the slits in the dress, you could see she wore skin-tight black shorts. Over her chest, she wore a metal chest plate of the same non-reflective and ultra-light metal as the Anbu. She wore fingerless gloves with metal plates on the knuckles, and her arms were bare all the way to her shoulders. You couldn't see this however, as she wore a large trench coat that was completely open in the front. And she wore arm guards over the coat that matched her shin guards. The coat was black with sakura petals the same shade as her dress decorating it. On her head was the new leaf headband she had earned last week in the graduation exam, acting as a headband. On the side of her head covering her left ear was a dark pink fox-style Oni mask. What was unseen by all and only known by two people was all the fuinjutsu involved in her outfit. All of her armor had fuinjutsu carved into every inch of the underside of it to reinforce it, to the point that she felt confident that only something on par with the lightning jutsu she and Naruto had seen in Anbu practicing could dent it. The Anbu had been punching through metal plates with his fist covered in lightning, and it was this that caused Naruto to find a way to protect them both from such jutsus through fuinjutsu. They hadn't been able to test it on jutsus yet, however, he had managed to more than quadruple the strength of the metal armor she now wore. All of her clothes had fuinjutsu sewn into them, mainly focused on muffling any noise she might make, and trapping her scent so that it wouldn't leave her body. All of this was powered by chakra's storage seal that covered her outfit and charged themselves off of any chakra her body restored past her maximum capacity, so that the fuinjutsu would not cause a drain on her reserves in combat. Should the fuinjutsu run out of chakra to charge it, it would merely go dormant instead of drawing more chakra from her. Her hair was long enough to reach her waist and braided around sharp ninja barbed wire to discourage people from grabbing her hair in combat. Naruto may adore her long hair, but they were both practical and had been planning to cut it until she had thought of this solution. Across her back was a 36-inch katana that Naruto had bought and filled with fuinjutsu for her. It was made of chakra metal which Sakura could channel both wind and lightning chakra through, and she had spent many hours mastering each. Though her main affinities were water and earth, neither of those affinities improved the destructive power of her sword, so she had labored until she could channel both wind and lightning through her blade, not simultaneously of course. It was reinforced just as her armor was, and had a special fuinjutsu carved into that would constantly sharpen the blade and repair damage it might suffer while sheathed, taking metal from inside its sheath to repair the damage. Naruto had one that was a perfect match in every way to her own. This way, if they ever needed to, they could wield each other's blade with the same skill as their own. As Sakura's thoughts drifted towards her blonde savior, she couldn't help but think back to how they had met. Flashback, attempted warning, skip if you wish. Will have summaries of what happened later so you stay informed. K-Ka-chan. An 8-year-old Sakura dressed in a pink festival kimono yelled, tears streaming down her cheeks as she turned in several circles trying to see her mother through the crowd. She saw only a shadow move in the corner of her eyes before an arm wrapped around her and jerked her back into the alley she had been near. A hand covering her mouth cut off her scream, and in the next moment she found herself pushed up against the alley wall, a large and obviously drunk man holding her arms above her head. He quickly pulled a knife and cut her cheek deep enough for it to start bleeding immediately. Make any more noise and I will keep cutting you up. Do you understand? The man hissed, holding the knife in front of her face, and Sakura nodded in fear as tears started to pour down her cheeks once more. This time in terror of the man in front of her instead of the thought of being lost. The man lifted her up by the arms she had trapped above her head until her feet were off the ground, and she started to struggle as he brought the knife towards the neckline of her kimono. No, let me go. She begged, only for him to slash her other cheek, leaving a bleeding wound that mirrored the first, and she snapped her mouth shut. The mont's knife returned to the collar of her kimono and he quickly thrust it down, slicing it open, and the kimono fell open, leaving only her small panties to cover her from the man's eyes. The man quickly cut up the rest of her kimono until it lay on the alley floor in shreds before doing the same to her panties, leaving her in nothing but her socks. The man took a moment to eye in a way that made Sakura flinch and try and curl her body up upon herself, only to have the man pull her away from the wall and slam her back into it. Before the man could do anything else, a rock struck him in the side of the head, causing him to drop her. She fell to the alley floor and immediately curled up on herself, so lost in her terror she couldn't hear anything above her sobs and her beating heart. While she lay there lost to the world, a blonde boy, the one who had thrown the rock, charged at the dazed man. Though only being 9 years old and extremely underfed, his charge would normally have no effect on any adult. This boy was no normal 9-year-old, and he was currently filled with a fury he had never felt before, brought on by what he had just witnessed the drunk man try to do to what was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen in his life. Never mind that the thing was in fact a girl, a person, and he avoided people like the plague. In his fury, his eyes had turned red and the pupils became slits. His fingernails started to grow longer, and his charge had enough force to cause the two of them to go flying down the alley. Though some measure of skill or just dumb luck, the man was able to get his knife between them before they hit the ground. As the boy started to rain down vicious strikes on the man, he ignored the knife and the pain it caused him as the man fought back, slashing and stabbing in desperation, opening several wounds on the boy's arms and deep gashes in the boy's chest and stomach, all of which would steam and almost seemed to boil before new flesh crawled over each cut as if it had never existed, though the blood remained, a testament to the damage the boy had taken. Eventually the man stilled under the boy's ragged breaths, showing he still lived though his arms lay limp to his sides. The boy would have continued his assault on the man until there was nothing left beneath him, until a sound shattered his bloodlust and caused him to whip his head around. Heart-wrenching sobs were coming from the small girl, the kind he knew all too well from his own experience. The boy staggered to his feet and stumbled as he made his way over to the girl, unzipping his jacket and sliding it off as he went. The girl didn't know how much time had passed, or even that it was passing at all, until she felt something being over here. Her eyes flew open and she jerked up to see an orange jacket slide down her body as she looked into the bright blue eyes of her savior. She could see her tormentor laying unmoving on the ground behind the blonde boy in front of her, and she flung herself at the boy without a conscious thought, clinging to him as tightly as she could and causing him to fall back from his crouched position and onto his butt. "Hey, you're all right. Everything will be okay," the boy whispered to her as he wrapped her once more in his jacket and held her close. "My name is Naruto. What is yours?" he asked softly as he rubbed Sakura's back. It took Sakura a few tries between her sniffles and tears. "Sakura. Okay, Sakura-chan, do you know where your parents are?" he asked in a soothing voice as he gently started wiping her face clean with his sleeve. "And no, I was calling for them when he grabbed me." It was at this time that she started to take more of the blonde in. He was dressed in a black shirt and bright orange pants. His jacket, still wrapped around her, was also bright orange. He was also bleeding from a lot of cuts on his arms and chest. "You're hurt," she practically shouted, and her trembling hands reached out wanting to help but having no idea what to do. "I will be fine, Sakura-chan, I promise," Naruto assured her before refocusing in her once more. "I can't take you to a hospital. They hate me there and might do nothing for you just because I am with you. Are you okay coming to my home to clean yourself up? It is very close, just in this building here, up a couple flights of stairs," he asked, waving at the building behind them, and she nodded once again, wrapping her arms around his neck and burying her head into his chest. Naruto picked her up in his arms and hurried into his rundown apartment building, careful not to be noticed by anyone on the street. It didn't take long for Naruto to enter his apartment and move immediately to the bathroom. Naruto tried setting Sakura down on her feet so he could start the bath, but she refused to move, her arms staying tightly locked around his neck, causing Naruto to sigh softly. "Sakura-chan, can you let me go? I need to get a bath started for you." Sakura just tightened her arms around Naruto's neck and shook her head. "We both need a bath, Sakura-chan. We are covered in dirt and blood. So I need you to let go so you can take your bath, then I can take mine after you." Again Sakura shook her head against his chest and Naruto frowned. "Do you want to take a bath together then, Sakura-chan? Would that be okay?" After a long pause, Sakura slowly nodded her head. Flashback ends. Sakura shook her head to clear her thoughts before raising her fist in the air and declaring, "Let do this cha," loudly before she turned to her bed and picked up her satchel filled with her scrolls, which contained ever personal effect and clothing she owned. She was a ninja now and as such was considered an adult. She could now legally move out and leave her parents behind. And she couldn't wait to be out of the house and away from her parents who were constantly warning to stay away from the demon brat, and telling her Naruto was a monster. Naruto was no monster, he was the kindest and most honorable boy she knew. She was hardworking and never gave up even when the odds were against him. He was a year older than her but was graduating with her. The civilian council which her parents were a part of had done everything they could in their limited power and without getting caught by the Hokage to keep Naruto out of the ninja academy. And that was the only piece of abuse her parents had done to Naruto that Sakura was grudgingly thankful for because it meant she could be on the same team as him. Through studying past teams to try and find a guaranteed way to be on the same team, they had discovered that every year the ninja and kunoichi of the year were paired with the worst graduate. So to form a strong team, Naruto decided to play the fool and Sakura had worked hard to be the best kunoichi in the academy. With Sasuke being Rookie of the Year even though Sakura had scored higher than him in the written test, the physical test, and the jutsu tests, the academy still handed the title of Rookie of the Year to him. It was practically a sure thing that Sasuke, Naruto and Sakura would be on a team. She and Naruto had planned to save up for the first few months that they were ninja in order to get an apartment together in the Shinobi district. Naruto's current apartment has been vandalized to the point of it being unusable, and though they did have their secret base for training, it was a place neither of them wanted to live in. However, their plans got moved forward when Mizuki had tried to trick Naruto into stealing the Forbidden Scroll. Naruto had gone to the Hokage and told him right away. The Hokage told him to play along and that Anbu would be tailing them. The assignment was considered A-ranked by the Hokage and Naruto received the pay and note in his files for the mission, and that windfall of cash had allowed them to make a down payment on the apartment they had been looking at. Sakura couldn't help but think of the startling discovery she had made during the mission last night. Naruto had come to her and informed her of his mission and she had shadowed him. She didn't think for a moment that Naruto didn't know she was there, but he had never said anything. Her discovery had come when Naruto was almost hit by a windmill shuriken. Flashback. No! Sakura shouted, rushing forward with her hands outstretched in a vain attempt to save Naruto from the windmill shuriken that was currently flying towards him. Iruka was unconscious from his and Mizuki's fight and Naruto hadn't been strong enough to defeat Mizuki, who was taken a pill of some kind that turned him into a tiger-human hybrid. Sakura knew she would never make it in time, and it was in that desperation that she felt a feeling in her gut and a sudden flow of chakra left her body. Then a dome made of wood had shot out of the ground and encased Naruto, the windmill shuriken impacting and then deflecting off the wood without leaving a scratch. Sakura froze at the sight and then slowly looked down at her hands in awe at what she had just done. Flashback ends. The Anbu had taken Mizuki out just after he had thrown the shuriken, and Sakura hadn't noticed until the Anbu had ordered both of them to report to the Hokage, where the Hokage had sworn all those who had witnessed her ability to the new S-class secret. Only herself, Naruto, the Anbu and of course the Hokage knew about it. Iruka had been knocked out and so never saw it being used, and Mizuki had been killed. They had hoped to interrogate him, but the chance of him escaping, as small as they weren't worth the risk of Sakura's secret getting out until she was strong enough to defend herself. Knowing this, the Anbu has made the decision to kill him instead of capture him. With one more glance around her room to assure herself she had packed everything, she headed downstairs where her parents were waiting for her. Upon entering the kitchen, Sakura noticed her father was sitting at the table and her mother at the stove making breakfast. Her mother noticed her first and smiled brightly at her at first. However, as her mother seemed to notice her new outfit, a frown took place on her face instead. "Good morning, Sakura-chan, what are you wearing?" Mebuki Haruno asked in confusion. Sakura mentally scoffed. Her mother believed that her purpose for becoming a kunoichi was to win Sasuke Uchiha heart and marry the rich young heir, as so many young girls in the village wished to do. It was a very easy cover over the last few years. She just had to act like almost every other girl at the academy, and no one had been any the wiser. "Morning, Ka-san, Tu-san," Sakura replied with cold neutrality, ignoring her mother's question. She stood straight-backed and tall, While as tall as she could be, still only being 13 years old and yet to hit her growth spurt. Both her mother and father were looking at her in shock at her cold and distant tone of voice. I've been hiding many things from you over the years, many of which I never planned to explain to you, but one of which you need to know now. I am moving out, and after this morning I doubt you will see me much anymore. All my things are packed and I will be leaving in a few moments. Sakura explained, hoping to cause her parents as much pain as possible. She could have just said she was moving out and that would be that, but she wanted them to know how little they really knew about their daughter. She wanted them to realize that because of their hatred their daughter was disgusted with them. Her mother and father's faces just continued to pale as their shock seemed to reach new levels. Sakura supposes that their shock was a good thing, she didn't need them yelling at her. She had enough difficulty restraining herself from enacting vengeance against them for all the pain they had caused her Naruto-kun as it was. She doubted she could stop herself from putting them in the hospital if they were to shout at her right now, as keyed up as she was from Naruto's near death the night before. You might be wondering why I hid things from you and why I am moving out now. The answer is simple. You have treated my most precious person as trash, you have participated in mobs who tortured him, you have actively worked to ostracize him. You have hidden the fact that merchants refused to sell to him or overcharge him from the Hokage, and you continued to insult and degrade him in front of me. You believe Naruto to be a demon, and over the years it has become clear to me that nothing will change your minds about him. Sakura recited verbatim from what she had written a few days ago. She was much more nervous doing this than she thought and had reverted to what she memorized rather than improvising as she had wanted to do. Now you see here. Her mother tried to interrupt, her face turning red in anger. However, Sakura focused all the killing intent she could on her mother, her own anger rising and washing away her nervousness. Her mother quickly sat down in fear of the murderous intent her daughter was filling the room with. Her killing intent was nothing that would intimidate anyone of Chunin level or above. For civilians like her parents it was overwhelming enough. Be silent and listen, Sakura roared back, causing both her parents to flinch. Naruto has saved me. He stopped a man from raping me when I was only 8 years old, and when I told you this you lead a mob to go torture him because he was obviously a demon for beating up the man who was trying to me. If that didn't show me the kind of people you are, nothing will. You care for some petty revenge against a child who has done you no wrong than you do about your own daughter and her safety. At this, Sakura growled softly, a habit she had picked up from Naruto, and spun around to march out of the house. However, before she left she looked over her shoulder at her cowering parents. You have always called Naruto a demon, so from now on you can call me Oni-no-Sakura, for that is what I am. I am the demon's cherry blossom. With that, Sakura left her old home for good. About a half hour later, Sakura was sitting by herself in the corner of the academy classroom opposite the classroom door, and she couldn't help but smirk at all the confused looks she was receiving. No one had yet to recognize her with her new outfit and new hairstyle. The sword on her back probably also helped confuse them, because no one in their class had ever worn a sword to school before. With her hair done differently, no makeup on whatsoever, and her complete outfit and attitude change, even her pink hair didn't help the idiots in the classroom recognize her. A few of the older boys had already approached her and tried to flirt. She had ignored them completely. As she waited for Naruto to arrive, she couldn't help having her mind wander to the cause of their first interactions. She had been 8 years old, about to start at the academy, and it had been the annual festival that celebrates the defeat of the Kyuubi. Sakura had found herself alone in a pretty bad part of town. She had been set upon by a very creepy old man there, and Naruto had saved her. Though not before the old man had ripped all of her clothes from her. Naruto had fought the man and eventually won, though not without taking a few deep cuts from the man's knife. In Sakura's young and traumatized mind, she had clung to Naruto and refused to let go, despite the fact that she was completely naked. Though her being 8 years old, that wasn't a big deal to her really. Naruto had wrapped her in his orange jacket and carried her all the way to his apartment, which wasn't that far away from where this had all happened. He had drawn a bath for her, but she refused to get in, instead of clinging to Naruto, so Naruto had taken a bath with her to clean them both. It had felt so wonderful to them both that they couldn't help but repeat it. They bathed together at least 4 times a week, always after their physical training days. The warm water surrounded them, Naruto's warm skin against her own, his hands scrubbing her body. It was a feeling Sakura never wanted to end. And when Naruto had entered puberty, it had amazed her how good it felt to watch him get hard at the sight of her. It warmed her entire body and she couldn't wait to start her growth as well, as it was she hadn't even started her period yet, which made her a pretty late bloomer. She didn't mind, however, as Naruto couldn't go a moment without telling her how beautiful she was. And with how often she saw his body back up his words, she was at least confident that Naruto found her beautiful, and that's all that mattered to her. Sadly, the morning after Naruto had rescued her and brought her home, things turned out pretty bad. She hadn't understood at first why he insisted on dropping her off and leaving before she even entered her home, but later she did. Telling her parents that a boy named Naruto had saved her from being D and going on about how he was a hero and had beaten up the bad man who wanted to hurt her. Her parents had only seemed to register that Naruto had beaten up someone, something he had never done before. They had formed a mob that night and tortured Naruto horrifically, worse than any other time. They had quickly become secret friends after that. Sakura had come to him crying and apologizing, believing his beating to be all her fault. Naruto had quickly assured her it was not her fault. They had been friends ever since. Just 1 year into the academy, Naruto had found a secret underground base when running from a mob and quickly showed it to Sakura. The base had contained a few storage rooms filled with all kinds of ninja weapons. The ones they didn't need they sold in order to pay for good katanas and the Anbu armor. Each of them had 3 sets of their armor and outfits. A large library filled with not only jutsu scrolls but manuscripts on research that had been done by a man named Orochimaru, who they later found out was a traitor to the Leaf Village. They had also found a lab, but it was, for the most part, empty and held nothing that interested them for long. She was drawn out of her thoughts when she heard a couple of the girls in the room gasp, and she looked towards the door and smiled. "That's right, all you fangirls, Naruto-kun is hot and he's all mine." Naruto was dressed in a similar manner to Sakura. His trench coat was black and fox orange, not the bright orange of his jumpsuit. He wore a matching orange shirt and black pants. He was armored in all the same places she was and had an identical blade sheathed on his back. Sakura smirked at a couple of the girls as they were completely ignored. Naruto even walked completely around a few of them who stood in his path to then fall into the chair beside her. The whole room was silent watching them at this point. Even Sasuke had stopped brooding for a moment as he tried to figure out who they were. "Good morning, Sakura-chan, you're looking as beautiful as ever," Naruto said, turning to smile brightly at her. She took his hand in her own on top of the table for all to see and greeted him in return. "Good morning, Naruto-kun," Sakura replied, blushing slightly and smiling brightly. Before anything else was said by anyone, the classroom doors opened and Iruka walked in to assign teams. Same teams as canon. Team 7 were all seated on the roof of the academy building. Their Junin sensei had been 2 hours late and had immediately told them to meet on the roof. Naruto and Sakura didn't mind their sensei's tardiness as they both had their own projects to work on as they waited. Sakura was currently trying to develop Tsunade's signature taijutsu strength from vague guesswork done by Orochimaru in some of his journals, and Naruto was working on his fuinjutsu studies as best he could. Orochimaru didn't have very much on the topic left in the base they had found, and the library never let him in to study. If he hanged into a civilian, a shinobi would notice what he was studying and become curious, and if he hanged into a ninja, another ninja would get suspicious, as barely anyone in the village was interested in fuinjutsu. Not that he expected the library to really have much on fuinjutsu, it was such a rare art it was likely he would need to find a sensei or some original works to study to progress any farther. Still, he loved to experiment and practice always helped in making him faster. After a few minutes of all 4 of them sitting in silence, Kakashi finally spoke up. "Alright, let's start by introducing ourselves. Start with your name, your likes and dislikes and dreams." Their sensei Kakashi said as she leaned back. "Let's start with you, Pinky," he said, pointing at Sakura, who glared at him slightly for the name. "My name is Sakura Haruno. I like Naruto-kun, medical ninjutsu, and kenjutsu. I hate all those too dumb to tell the difference between a scroll and a kunai. And those who look no further than their first impression for the truth." At this, Kakashi's eyes widened at the implied knowledge about Naruto. "My dreams are to become the greatest kunoichi ever, equal to the greatest Hokage ever, along with some other things that are none of your business," she finished in a serious voice, staring at Kakashi as if daring him to question her. Kakashi stared back for a moment, already planning to pull her aside and to try and determine if she knew the secret of the Kyuubi after the meeting. And it was surprising to see such a serious declaration from a 13-year-old girl. They were normally fangirls at this point in their careers. "Well, alright," Kakashi drawled after a moment. "You're up next, Blondie," he said, pointing at Naruto. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki and I like Sakura-chan, ramen, and fuinjutsu." At this, Kakashi raised an eyebrow in surprise. According to academy records, Naruto was dead last in his year, barely able to pass the academy. Yet here he was claiming to know fuinjutsu. It would be interesting to see what the truth was. I dislike all those who cannot see past their hatred, and those who pick on Sakura-chan. My dreams are to become the greatest Hokage this village will ever have and to revive my clan. Naruto declared calmly, meeting Kakashi's stare with his own. Kakashi had to suppress a giggle as thoughts of his two students being part of the next ICHA novel entered his mind. It was a few minutes before he returned to the world to see all his students watching him impassively. "Right, you next, Blackie," he said, pointing at Sasuke. "My name is Sasuke Uchiha. I hate a lot of things, and I don't particularly like anything. What I have is not a dream, because I will make it a reality. I'm going to restore my clan, and kill a certain someone." "Great," Kakashi thought sarcastically in response to Sasuke's introduction, though outwardly he displayed no emotion. "Right, you are all to be at training ground 7 at 6 in the morning tomorrow for the test to see if you will truly become genin. Out of all of you who passed the academy, 2/3 of you will fail and be sent back for more lessons. Oh, and make sure not to eat anything, you will just throw it up." With that, Kakashi shunshined away before any of them could speak. Sasuke grunted and walked away while Sakura and Naruto stayed still for a moment. "We aren't genin yet?" Sakura whispered, suddenly afraid of what would happen if she wasn't a genin. If she wasn't a genin, her parents could pull her from the program and she would be forced to go back to them. With what she had done early that morning, that would be hell for her. "Hey, it will all be alright," Naruto said, pulling her into his arms and smiling down at her. "We just have to pass this test tomorrow and everything will be alright. We are far stronger than anyone else in the academy and we are used to working together. I would guess the test will be about seeing where we really are in skill level and seeing if we can work together." Sakura sighed and relaxed into Naruto's hold. "You're probably right, I am just worried. If I don't become a genin and I am forced back with my parents, I don't know what they will do to me for what I did this morning. We will run away together before I let you go back to them, Sakura, I promise." "We can't do that, Baka," she admonished in an affected voice. "You are the village Jinchuriki, they would hunt you down no matter where you went. We wouldn't get far, not as we are now. I know we are probably pretty close to a mid-level Chunin in skill, but that would be nothing to the Anbu they would send after us." She tried to reason with him. "I don't care about the odds. They will never force you to go back to your parents," Naruto promised, and Sakura just sighed and nodded, knowing he would protect her no matter the costs. It was her job to try and lessen the costs wherever possible. "Alright, let's go to our new home." It didn't take long for them to arrive at their new apartment building, and after 2 flights of stairs they arrived at their new apartment on the 3rd floor. "Oi, what are brats like you doing here?" a voice called out just as Sakura and Naruto were unlocking their new apartment. They both turned to see a scantily dressed kunoichi standing in the open doorway next to their own. Apparently, this was their new neighbor. She was dressed in a very short skirt and a full body chain mess without a true shirt, or a bra if the way her look-through mess was anything to go by. Have just moved in here today. We graduated last week," Naruto replied, tapping his forehead protector and smiling brightly. The lady scoffed. "Brats like you, genin? You wouldn't last a minute in the field. If you say so, Kunoichi-san," Sakura said calmly, causing the woman to blink slightly, having clearly expected them to yell at her that they could take on the world. "The name is Anko Mitarashi Brats. And you do know that that apartment only has 1 bedroom, right?" she asked, leaning against her doorframe as she watched them. Sakura blushed slightly at the question but didn't look away, and Naruto just smirked. "Well, I would hope so. No need to pay for an extra room we don't need." Anko laughed her ass off at that, and Naruto and Sakura slipped into their new apartment, her laughter echoing behind them. The apartment was a small 1-bedroom affair with a living room, kitchen combo, and a single bathroom, but it was enough for them. However, they both drew their katana and got into fighting stances the moment they realized someone was sitting on their living room couch. "Yo!" their sensei called out from the couch where he was reading an orange book. Both Naruto and Sakura sweat dropped at their sensei's actions but didn't relax their stances. Kakashi sighed and snapped his book shut. "Sit down both of you. I have some questions and I need answers," he said seriously, and both Naruto and Sakura nodded, sitting on the two bar stools that were at the counter separating the kitchen from the living room. Both Naruto and Sakura didn't say a word, just silently watched their new sensei until he sighed again and started to speak. "During introduction today, Sakura, it sounded as if you know one of our village's S-class secret, which is punishable by death. It is only your obvious closeness to Naruto and that fact that the S-class secret involves Naruto that you haven't been brought in for interrogation." "Look like our guess was correct, Sakura-chan," Naruto said with a smirk that caused Sakura to smile even in the tense atmosphere of the room. "What was guess would that be, Naruto?" Kakashi asked seriously, and Naruto just smirked more. "Well, Sakura and I have been wondering what the seal on my stomach was for many years now, and since I have started studying Fuinjutsu, I could at least tell the seal on me had something to do with containing something within my body. That paired with villages everywhere calling me the demon child, my birthday being on the same day the Kyuubi attacked, and the red chakra that sometimes covered my body and healed me when I was beaten as a child, and we figured I must have the Kyuubi sealed within me. Are we right, Kakashi-sensei?" Kakashi dropped his head into his hands and rubbed his temples as if he had a big headache. "What do you mean when the villagers beat you badly enough, Naruto?" he asked after a long moment. "Answer my question first, sensei." Naruto growled, and Sakura took his hand in hers to calm him down. "Yes, sealed within you is the Kyuubi. Now Naruto, when were you beaten badly enough that red chakra covered you? The seal should only allow for something like that if you were dying and there was no hope for you without it. Well, it hasn't really happened in years now. I have gotten too good for them to catch me anymore. But the villagers used to love chasing me down and beating me to within an inch of my life. I've lost count of the number of times I've seen the red chakra heal me." Naruto replied shortly, not wishing to go into any details. Still, it was enough to make Kakashi pale. To have been beaten so badly as to need the Kyuubi's chakra to survive was far worse than any of the official reports had even hinted at about his childhood, and pointing to glaring falsehoods in the reports the Hokage was getting about Naruto's life. "I see," Kakashi replied sourly, and it took him a few minutes to gather his thoughts. In that time, Sakura had moved to Naruto's lap and was stroking his neck softly. It seemed his questions had brought back some bad memories, so he decided to move on to his second set of questions, or rather assumptions. "You know, neither of you are anything like what your academy reports say. Going purely by the academy reports, I was expecting a screaming Sasuke fangirl and a complete prankster-loving, loud-mouthed idiot. Care to explain?" he asked with an eye smile. "What is a ninja's #1 weapon, Kakashi-sensei?" Naruto answered with a question, and Kakashi nodded, standing up and not bothering to answer the question. Everyone knew a shinobi's #1 weapon was deception. "Good, I look forward to seeing your true abilities tomorrow morning. Good night, and try not to stay up all night, you both will need your rest for tomorrow's." He called out the last bit as he left their apartment, leaving a stream of perverted giggles behind him that left Naruto and Sakura blushing a bright red, not at the thought of each other doing those actions, but that their sensei was teasing them about said actions. Naruto and Sakura entered Training Ground 7 at 6 on guard and ready for any surprises their sensei might throw at them for this test, only to arrive at the clearing in the center of the training ground to find Sasuke leaning against some wooden dummies and reading through a scroll. "Morning, Sasuke-san," Naruto greeted as he and Sakura leaned against their own posts, putting Naruto in the middle. "HN," Sasuke grunted without looking up, and they all lapsed into silence. An hour later, Sakura and Naruto were moving through their Kenjutsu katas to loosen their muscle and warm up. Already resigned to waiting for their sensei, just as they had to yesterday to meet him the first time. "I wonder how the Hokage deals with a Junin who is always late like this," Sakura muttered darkly as she performed a few repetitions of a horizontal slash. "Not setting a very good example, that's for sure," Naruto replied as he jumped back from an imaginary opponent and then thrust forward, careful not to overextend himself. "You know it will probably be the bell test we read about in Orochimaru's journals, right? Kakashi was the 4th student after all, and it said Team 7 always gets the bell test." The Sandame even took it before Orochimaru's team. Sakura spoke up and Naruto sheathed his sword. Think we should talk to Sasuke about it then? Naruto asked and Sakura nodded, sheathing hers as well. Then together they both walked back over to Sasuke, who was still leaning against the same dummy as he was when they first arrived. "Yo Sasuke-san," Naruto called out as they approached, causing Sasuke to look up at them with his permanent frown in place. "What is his dobi?" Sasuke asked, and an angry tick formed on Sakura's forehead, only to have Naruto placed a hand on her arm, causing her to huff but to stay silent. "Sakura and I have been reading up about this Junin test and we found the one we think our sensei will be giving us. It seems ever since Konoha has been founded, Team 7 has always had the same test. They call it the bell test." Sasuke raised an eyebrow and visibly paid more attention as he spoke. Sakura took over, explaining next. "The bell test, in a test in which the sensei has 2 bells and tell his students in order to pass they must get a bell from him, and whoever doesn't get a bell is failed. This is a lie, with the purpose of trying to make us fight with each other. The true purpose of the test is to work as a team to get the bells. So long as our sensei sees us using teamwork, he will pass us. That is what happened for the Sannin, the Yondaime, and our own sensei's test. So if he has us do the bell test, it just means he wants us to work together." Sakura explains and Sasuke scoffed. "Please, you expect me to work together with a useless fangirl and the dead last of the academy? If he really gives us the test you think he is going to give us, I will just have to get the bells from him and prove I don't need teamwork to be strong." This put tick marks on both Naruto and Sakura. "Hey Teme, it seems you have forgotten the first rule of the shinobi." Naruto snarled and took a step forward. "Yay, and what would be dobi?" Sasuke yelled in response. "Deception, never let your enemy know what you are truly capable of. I made myself dead last on purpose so that I would be put on a team with the 2 best in the academy. They always pair the 2 best with the worst to try and balance out the team. So I made myself the worst so I would be on a strong team." Sakura-chan was only pretending to be a fangirl, which was too easy. She just had to copycat the rest of the girls in the academy. Have you forgotten she took first place in every ninja art? The only reason she didn't kick your ass is that they test girl and boys separately in taijutsu. Sasuke just glared at Naruto, and before he could reply there was a poof of smoke and Kakashi arrived on the training ground. There was dead silence for a few seconds, as if Kakashi was waiting for one of them to shout something at him before he scratched the back of his head awkwardly. "Right, well, you're all here, so let's get started," he said, holding up 2 bells. "The purpose of this morning's test is for you to try and take these bells from me." At this Sasuke glanced at his teammates in surprise, a glance Kakashi quickly caught but didn't comment on. "If you don't get a bell you will fail and I will tie you up so you are forced to watch as we eat our lunch." At this, only Sasuke's stomach grumbled, causing Naruto and Sakura to smirk. They, of course, had eaten breakfast thanks to the journals they had found about Orochimaru's younger years. He had ranted for nearly a full page about the don't eat breakfast part of the test. "You have until noon, make sure to come at me with the intent to kill, otherwise you will have no chance of getting the bells, begin." Kakashi shouted and Sasuke immediately jumped back into the forest. Naruto and Sakura, however, stayed put, drawing their katanas as they did so. Kakashi raised his eyebrows at this and pulled out a small orange book which he opened and started to read. "You're not going to hide?" Kakashi asked mildly as he turned a page. "Well, we figured the purpose of this test was for you to really see what we were capable of and to see if we could work together as a team, and since Sasuke believes us both to be weaklings and refused to consider working with us before you arrived, we need to show not only you but Sasuke what we can do. I really don't feel like being sent back to the academy just because of an Uchiha's arrogance." Kakashi smiled under his mask, unseen by his 2 students. "Alright then, show me what you can do," Kakashi said once still reading his book. Immediately Sakura leapt into the air with a chakra-enhanced jump, sheathing her katana as she did and quickly formed some hand signs. Naruto was running forward, forming his own hand signs, his katana held in a reverse grip to free up his finger. "Water release. Water bullet technique." Sakura shouted from the air and fired off 4 large bullets of water a little bit bigger than bowling balls from her mouth, each one launching her back through the air away from Kakashi. Kakashi's eye widened in shock at the C-ranked jutsu being fired at him from a fresh academy student, but quickly dodged around each of the shots. As he was dodging, he heard Naruto call out, "Lightning release! Lightning bullet technique!" A single bolt of lightning launched from his mouth and Kakashi's eyes widened as he realized their plan in an instant and jumped in the air just in time to avoid being fried as the lightning hit the water on the ground and erupted in a field of smaller bolts jumped around from puddle to puddle. He was once again shocked to see kunai flying at him in midair, thrown by Sakura who had yet to land from her own jump, and he quickly substituted himself to avoid the throw. 3 kunai hit the log and Kakashi appeared just behind Sakura as she landed. She ducked to dodge a roundhouse kick from him and kicked up at his chest, which Kakashi blocked only to find himself being flung back into a tree at the force behind the kick. Kakashi didn't have time to wonder how the hell a girl like her had so much force behind her blows because her fist was about to make contact with his head. He leapt to the side and stared in shock as a hole the size of his chest was blown through the tree with her bare fist. He sweat dropped at the display but didn't have time to say anything to Naruto swung his katana at his back and he ducked under it and grabbed his wrist, pulling him off balance and using Naruto's sword to block the strike aimed at his neck from Sakura Katana, who had leapt at him with another chakra-enhanced jump. Though he did position himself to avoid her swing in case there was as much force behind the swing as there was in his fists. He was thankful that the force behind the swing, while powerful for a genin, wasn't inhuman like her other attacks. Kakashi had to twist out of the way to avoid Naruto's hand, which had reached out while as Kakashi had pulled him in an attempt to grab the bells. Naruto's fingers brushed against the bells and Kakashi realized he would have to take these two a little more seriously. He had never had anyone touch his bells during this test unless he let it happen on purpose, which he had not done with Naruto. The 3 of them then engaged in a battle of taijutsu and kenjutsu that greatly impressed Kakashi. Every time he would block a sword strike with a kunai, block a kick or punch from Naruto. He made sure to always dodge or at least deflect any of Sakura's taijutsu strikes. The other would attack him somewhere that would force him to shift to them, also keeping him on the defense. Well, Kakashi was only moving at high chunin level speed, which when paired with his experience and skill was enough to hand the 2. Still, it was an impressive display of trust and faith in each other for them to be able to fight in close quarters like this and never once get in each other's way. Kakashi leapt back and started forming hand signs for a basic fireball jutsu to see how they would deal with it. Fire release. Fireball technique. He shouted and launched a large fireball at them and smiled as he heard Sakura shout. Water release. Water dome technique. And a dome of water formed around Sakura and Naruto and took the impact of the fireball, causing a large eruption of steam to fill the clearing. When it cleared, both Naruto and Sakura were nowhere to be seen and Kakashi landed, pulling out his book once more. He didn't have to wait long, as not long after Naruto and Sakura had vanished, Sasuke came jumping out of the woods to stand opposite Kakashi. Same fight as canon, only Sasuke didn't touch the bells. Only came close. Naruto and Sakura walked up behind Sasuke's head, which was still the only part of him above ground after they were sure Kakashi had either moved on or, and this was more likely, was well hidden and watching their every move while pretending he was really gone. Believe us now, Sasuke? Naruto called out and then had to stifle a laugh as his head moved around, obviously trying to turn to face them, but he was unable to. So Naruto and Sakura walked around to the front of him and he glared at them both. Get me out of here, Dobi. He growled and Naruto flopped down, so he was sitting cross-legged on the ground. Sakura followed his example, only much more gracefully, and knelt on the ground instead of sitting cross-legged. I think we will leave you in there, Teme, at least until we finish our talk. Don't worry, I will get you out at the end. Sasuke's glare intensified, but Naruto continued unbothered by it. Do you see now that we need to work together? I am sure you saw our fight with Kakashi, and working together we came out much better than you did. With all 3 of us, we can get those bells. Naruto lied. He knew that there was no way they could get the bells from Kakashi. He was too strong and had far too much experience to let them get the bells. However, Naruto was confident the test was about teamwork by now and was willing to trick Sasuke if need be to get them to work together and pass the test. Peef. Sasuke replied but didn't speak, he just nodded without meeting either of their eyes, and Naruto took that acceptance as enough. Sakura leaned forward and put her hand to the earth, and a moment later the ground spit him out and they began planning for their upcoming battle with Kakashi. Kakashi was leaning against the middle wooden dummy in the main clearing reading his book when a fireball was suddenly fired out of the trees behind him that engulfed him and all the dummies in a ball of flame. Sasuke landed next to the burning crater only for Kakashi to pull him into the ground using the same headhunter jutsu as before. Kakashi sighed and looked down at Sasuke. "And I thought you were a genius, Sasuke, falling for the same trick twice in the same day? I am disappointed." Kakashi mocked only to jump away as Sasuke exploded with the force of several explosive tags. Though Kakashi did escape the blast, it was still disoriented and barely blocked a blow from Sakura, who had leapt from the trees behind him to strike while he was in midair. Her blow was monstrous as usual, however, with him being in the air it sent him flying instead of breaking most of the bones in his body. Shaking his head, he saw Naruto and Sasuke standing about where he was going to land, flashing through hand signs. Wind release, wind bullet technique. Fire release, grand fireball technique. Naruto's wind bullet punched straight through the grand fireball, but instead of dispersing it seemed to suck in the fire behind it until a screaming comet of fire and high-pressured air was flying at Kakashi. Earth release, field of earth and spikes. He heard Sakura called out from behind him, and the entire field was filled with earth and spikes, turning it all into a pitfall trap that he was falling into with a wall of fire coming at him. The combination jutsu seemed to collide with him in midair, and Sasuke relaxed with a smirk as Naruto continued to watch carefully for any sign of their sensei. Sakura retreated into the tree and around the clearing to where her other teammates were. She was totally spent from the amount of chakra she put into the earth jutsu. Just as she reached the edge of the clearing, she noticed Kakashi standing behind Naruto and Sasuke. She was about to shout out a warning when he snapped his book shut and spoke up. "You all pass," Kakashi said from behind Naruto and Sasuke, causing them both to jump away and pull out kunai as they landed in a defensive crouch. "Be here at 7 a.m. tomorrow for our first mission as a team." And with that, he shushined away, causing all three to sweat drop at their sensei's abruptness. Kakashi appeared in the Hokage's office, having shushined straight there. Hiruzen glanced up from his paperwork and seeing Kakashi staring at him seriously with his one eye, figured something must have happened. "What has happened, Kakashi?" Hiruzen asked, setting his paperwork down. "I thought you said you were giving me a genin team," Kakashi said seriously, and Hiruzen blinked slowly in confusion. "Don't tell me you haven't met them yet. Teams were assigned yesterday," Hiruzen replied, leaning back in his chair and lighting his pipe. "I have met my team, Hokage-sama. I merely thought you were giving me a team of genin. There is no way Naruto and Sakura are genin. Sasuke is definitely around high genin levels in skill, but the other two, not even close," Kakashi explained, and Hiruzen raised an eyebrow. "They both passed the academy. I know they might not be up to your standards, but they are fully qualified genin by academy standards." "You misunderstand me, Hokage-sama. I did not mean to imply they were under genin level. No, they are far above it. Both are solid chunin level in skill and strategy, not close to the level of junin yet, but far beyond what a genin should be at in terms of skill." Hiruzen lowered his pipe at this and sat up straighter. "Explain," he said seriously, and so Kakashi did, explaining every detail of the test he gave today and how his students had done in them. By the end, Hiruzen was rubbing his temple and shaking his head. "How much have you hidden from us, Naruto?" Hiruzen thought before lifting his head up to look at Kakashi. "Well, that is surprising. I didn't realize Naruto and Sakura were so far along." He sat in silence for a moment before he started his questions. "You said Sakura displayed abnormal high levels of strength?" Kakashi nodded but muttered, "More like monstrous. Do you think it is Tsunade's technique or something new? I am not sure yet, however, it seemed to be incomplete. The strength behind her blows varied a great deal, as if she was still working on how to do it consistently." This caused Hiruzen to nod thoughtfully before sighing and leaning back. "There is something else you should know about Sakura, now that you are officially her sensei." As Hiruzen spoke, he channeled his chakra into a seal on his desk that secured the room and even made it so the Anbu in the room couldn't hear what was being spoken, and their lips were blurred to stop them from being able to read lips. Kakashi felt the chakra infused the room and wondered what kind of secret Sakura could possibly have that would need such security. "Sakura has the Mokuton bloodline," Hiruzen said seriously, resting his elbows on his desk and folding his hands under his chin. "What?" Kakashi asked in shock, and Hiruzen just nodded seriously. But how? Is she related to the first?" he asked, still in a state of shock. "In a very distant way, I suppose. From all the research I have been able to uncover, a second daughter to a branch member of the Senju clan married into the Haruno line back before even the founding of Konoha. We don't know if Sakura is lucky in some way or if every one member of her family has possessed this ability. Sakura is the first ninja of her family, and she discovered her bloodline at the same time we did, the night after the graduation exams. For obvious reason, we are keeping this very quiet. Kakashi nodded, still in a state of light shock. Seeing he wasn't about to speak up, Hiruzen explained some more. If what you are saying is true, both Sakura and Naruto are geniuses. We have Sakura, who was by all account a fangirl all through academy, showing Chunin levels of skill where she was expected to be around the bottom of the genins. She is developing something similar to Tsunade's strength technique, has displayed plenty of skill in Kenjutsu, which as far as I know is self-taught, as none of our Kenjutsu masters in the village currently have apprentices. She is able to use C-rank techniques from 2 different elements and possess the Mokuton bloodline. Then we have Naruto, another hidden gem who fooled us all even more than Sakura. Kenjutsu on par with Sakura, also self-taught, C-rank techniques in 2 elements, monstrous chakra reserves, and the power of the Kyuubi. Hiruzen mused out loud before locking eyes with Kakashi. If Sasuke can keep up with those 2, we are looking at a team that will most likely surprise the Sannin. Don't you feel honored, Kakashi? Hiruzen had a dangerous look in his eyes as he said this, causing Kakashi to look anywhere but at him. You will not be your normal lazy self with these students, do you understand me? Hokage-sama? I want these 3 in the Chunin exams in 6 months. If they are truly as skilled as you think, then they will dominate the Chunin exams. Konoha could definitely use such publicity. And at this point, it's possible all 3 of your students are a flight risk. We already know Sasuke is one, but now with these new revelations, it seems Sakura and Naruto might be as well. They have hidden their skill level from the village, and we know how the village has treated Naruto. It's not unlikely he has no love for the village. I want you to keep an eye on him, because at this point I don't really know how much of his public face during the academy was real and how much was an act. Kakashi nodded to this. And judging from the fact that Sakura and Naruto are now living together, they are very close. I imagine that if Naruto left, so would Sakura. This means you need to help them form bonds to the village, Kakashi, and you need to train them seriously. They have to feel wanted and appreciated in this village. It would be a major blow to lose any of them. Yes, Hokage-sama, Kakashi replied, deep in thought, and Hiruzen dismissed him to let them both think on all that had been discussed. Naruto smiled as he watched Sakura reaching up to paint the top of a fence that surrounded the lawn of one of the village civilians. He knew she was impatient to hit puberty, and he already suspected she had played with his body while he slept the last few mornings, and he knew for sure she had the morning of the bell test. Still, it seemed she was unaware of the new curves her body was developing. Her hips were widening and her legs were gaining more figure. The last few mornings he had noticed that her S were starting to develop slightly as well, not much, but it was definitely there. He noticed every change her body made because of how much she loved them being naked together in their new home. There was just no way for him not to notice. It was almost an unwritten rule that clothes were only to be worn when they were expecting company or when they were getting ready to leave for the day. And of course, being the young man he was, he didn't mind that unspoken rule one bit. Still, he wondered if he should point out that it seemed she was starting puberty or let her notice it on her own. He continued to ponder this even as he refocused himself on his task. He raised his own brush once more, ignoring the perverted giggles from behind him. Their sensei tended to break into giggles whenever he caught Naruto or Sakura staring at each other during their missions, and Sakura and Naruto just did their best to ignore it. They were all working on painting fences for their D-ranked mission today, more as a break than anything else. They had taken a C rank the day before, a simple messenger mission where they had picked up a scroll from a village in the Fire Country, then brought it to the Hokage. It would have taken a few days for a civilian messenger to make the journey, but with Kakashi pushing them all hard, they had made the round trip in one day. Literally nothing of note happened on that trip, and it was only C rank because it was out of the village. Still, to do a C rank in the first week of being a genin was almost unheard of, not that anyone told the 3 genins that. All 3 of the genin of Team 7 were starting to get impatient with these gloried chores, even though Sakura and Naruto figured that was part of why they were doing them. It would be a good way for their superiors to get an understanding of their levels of patience and their ability to follow orders without complaint. It also would show how they reacted when frustrated and bored. Still, knowing these D ranks were tests did little to alleviate the boredom of them. Naruto believed Sasuke would crack first. In fact, he would put money on him exploding the next time they were assigned a D-rank mission. It was barely an hour later they all finished their D-rank mission and their sensei dismissed them, vanishing in a poof of smoke and leaving his 3 students to themselves. As usually, Sasuke turned and left without saying a word or sparing a glance at the other 2. Sakura slipped her hand into Naruto's and they smiled at each other. "Would you like to go get some ramen, Sakura?" Naruto asked hopefully, and Sakura couldn't help but sigh sarcastically. "That would be the 5th time in the last 5 days, Naruto. Don't you ever get tired of ramen?" Naruto pouted and then declared defiantly, "Never, Sakura, ramen is food for the gods." This caused Sakura to giggle but agree to go out for ramen. She then shifted closer to Naruto, tucking herself under his arm and against his chest as they started walking, Naruto's arm wrapping around her waist possessively as they moved through the village. It wasn't long before they were ducking under the flaps around Naruto's favorite ramen stand, Ichiraku. "Naruto." "Sakura." Ayame called out joyfully, a large smile on her face. "Hey, Ayame, it's good to see you," Sakura replied, and Naruto nodded in agreement as they both sat down. "The usually I take it?" she asked, and they both nodded affirmatively. "Hey, Tu-san." The usually for Naruto and Sakura. She called into the back and got an answering shout. "So, how was your mission today?" Ayame asked as she leaned against the counter and looked down at both of them with mirth in her eyes. She knew full well by their bored and tired looks that it was most likely another D-rank mission day. Naruto and Sakura had been complaining about D-rank missions ever since they graduated the academy. "Painting fences." Sakura and Naruto answered in synchronized monotone, and Ayame couldn't help but break out into a fit of giggles. Sakura and Naruto pouted at her reaction, which only made her giggle harder. "Hey, what's going on up here?" Tucci asks loudly as he walked up holding 2 bowls of ramen which he put down in front of Naruto and Sakura. "Ayame-chan is laughing at us, Tucci, help us." Sakura complained with a smile, and Tucci just grunted in amusement. Their second week as a genin was going much the same as their first, though, with more training from Kakashi. Sasuke was pushing himself to his limits every single day, and more than once Kakashi had to carry him home. The reason for his single-minded, reckless training style was his frustration with Naruto and Sakura. He had yet to win a spare with either of them. In fact, he knew they were both holding back when they faced him, as he could see their true skill when faced with Kakashi. If he couldn't beat his 2 teammates that had been complete losers in the academy, how in the world was he supposed to become strong enough to kill his brother? He ignored the fact that Sakura had scrolled higher than him in every aspect of the ninja in the academy. Still, he was improving at an amazing rate, not the same as Naruto and Sakura, but faster than another one else of his age aside from those 2, and it was this level of skill as well as the superb teamwork shown between Naruto and Sakura and the acceptable level of teamwork between the team as a whole that led them to receive their second C-rank mission in as many weeks for being genin. Team 7 was standing at attention waiting for their client to arrive. All the genin were suppressing their excitement at the mission, but they couldn't keep the smiles off their faces. Suddenly, a loud and slightly slurred voice spoke up from behind them. "What? I get a bunch of brats, they're barely older than my grandson. Look at them, there is no way they could be ninjas." Team 7 turned to look at the owner of the loud voice to see an aged man holding a bottle of sake in one hand as he leaned against the doorframe for support. Tick marks appeared on the foreheads of each of the genin at his words, but they all held their composure and acted as if he had not spoken at all. "I assure you, Tazuna, they are each fully fledged ninja. In fact, each of them is the very best we have to offer for their rank. They are our top 3 genins in the village, and their sensei Kakashi is one of our very best ninjas. They will be able to handle anything that might come up on your trip." The Hokage assured him, causing the old man to grunt but hold his tongue when it came to future complaints, at least in front of the Hokage. "Whatever, I need you 4 to escort me to the land of Wave and then protect me as I complete the bridge connecting our land to yours. Expect it to take at least a month," Tazuna explains before taking another sip of his sake. Everyone sweat drop at his abrupt change from old drunk to commanding old man and then back to old drunk, all in the span of a few seconds. After a long pause in which no one else spoke, Kakashi broke the silence. "You all heard him. Meet at the main gate in 10 minutes, be packed for a month," Kakashi ordered, then vanished in a cloud of smoke. 10 minutes later Sasuke, Sakura, and Naruto were all leaning against the main gate waiting for their sensei and Tazuna to show up. Honestly, each of them was expecting them to be at least an hour late. With the habitual laziness of their sensei displayed daily, they were all used to his tardiness by now. So they were each surprised to see both their sensei and their client walking up the street only 5 minutes later. You think if we asked the Hokage to make our training a mission he would show up on time every day? Sakura whispered only loud enough for Naruto and Sasuke to hear her as she kicked off the wall a little to watch their sensei and client approach. Sasuke just grunted and turned away while Naruto giggled softly. I highly doubt it would work, Sakura, he replied as he stifled his giggles. Damn, she muttered, and leaned back against the wall tucking herself under Naruto's arm in the same motion causing Naruto raised an eyebrow at her. What? We can't act like more than teammates on a mission so I won't be able to get my cuddles from you until tonight when we both don't have a watch shift. That's only 2 hours of cuddling instead of my normal minimum of 8. She explained and stuck her tongue out. Kakashi, who heard the whole thing, started giggling and Naruto just shrugged, used to both Sakura's and Kakashi's actions by now, and held Sakura close as they leaned against the wall watching Kakashi. Alright, let's cover our supplies. You start, Sasuke, Kakashi ordered. 3 outfits, 1 sleeping bag, 1 tent. 4 weeks worth of food bars, 300 shurikens, 200 kunai, 50 smoke bombs, 30 explosive tags. Sasuke reported and Kakashi turned to Naruto. 3 outfits, 1 sleeping bag, 1 two-man tent, 4 weeks worth of food, 500 shurikens and kunai, 100 smoke bombs and explosive tags, 50 capture seals, fuinjutsu supplies for custom seals if needed, Naruto reported. Kakashi raised an eyebrow at the number of supplies but didn't comment as he turned to Sakura. 3 outfits, 1 spare sleeping bag. She put an emphasis on the word spare and cuddled into Naruto to underline her point even more, causing Naruto to blush and Kakashi to break into a new fit of giggles. 4 weeks of food, 500 shurikens and kunai, 100 smoke bombs and explosive tags. Medical supplies including 1,000 feet of bandages, 100 blood pills, 20 soldier pills and other miscellaneous medical supplies. Sakura replied. She had discovered medical ninjutsu scrolls in Orochimaru's library just before graduation and had buried herself in them. Naruto had never seen her devour knowledge like she had those scroll on medical ninjutsu, and in the last few weeks her skills in the medical arts had skyrocketed. Her chakra control had already been close to perfect. Her mind that of an organized genius, and her drive to be a partner to Naruto had caused her to excel like none before her. After barely more than 3 weeks of self-study and training, she was able to perform most of the apprentice-level medical ninjutsu. Alright then, you all sound ready, let's move out. Team 7 moved in basic protection formation with Naruto at the point, Sakura on left flank and Sasuke on right and Kakashi taking up the rear. Ahead of them, just out of sight on the road, was a group of Naruto shadow clones hanged into a group of travelers. There were also hanged clones on either side of them in the woods. They were moving at a steady civilian pace and none of them were speaking. The journey had started with Tazuna insulting the 3 genins and they all replied with silence. Now a few hours later the silence was heavy and awkward, though Kakashi ignored it and had his face buried in his orange book. Man, this is boring, Naruto said loudly, getting everyone's attention as he moved his hands behind his head and pretended to stretch while signing with his fingers back to his team. Just as they had planned earlier. His hanged clones ahead of them on the road or the ones in the woods would dispel if they spotted anything to send that information to Naruto as an early alert system. Genjutsu ahead, unknown number of enemy, Naruto hand signed from behind his head. Just focus on the mission, Naruto-kun, Sakura replied as she went on high alert along with Sasuke and Kakashi. Though even his genin couldn't tell that he had done anything besides turn a page in his book, Kakashi looked as disinterested as ever. Not even a minute later, just after they passed a very obvious puddle on the road, bladed chains broke from the ground wrapping around Kakashi and shredding him. 2 ninjas with kiri/slashed forehead protectors which marked them as missing nin also broke from the ground and rushed Tazuna. They each wore gray cloaks with heavy metal gauntlets with clawed fingers. The gauntlets were linked between the 2 of them by the bladed chain that had shredded Kakashi. It was clear they assumed the genin would be too shocked at seeing their dead sensei to protect Tazuna. But they were surprised as Sasuke and Naruto charged forward without hesitation, throwing a handful of kunai each as they went, which the two missing nin easily deflected. At the same time, Sakura leapt in front of Tazuna and rushed through a series of hand signs to unleash her signature protection jutsu. Water release, water dome technique, and a dome of high-pressured water formed over Tazuna and herself. By this time Sasuke and Naruto had engaged in a quick and brutal taijutsu match with the two missing nin. The missing nin were both surprised by the speed of both genin, and when they tried to move they found most of the kunai that had been thrown had in fact pinned their chain to the ground, making it so they couldn't move to dodge Naruto's and Sasuke's blows. Naruto's blow knocked his target unconscious by landing a hard blow to his temple with the ring of the kunai in his fist. Sasuke instead went for a body blow that knocked his target off his feet but gave him time to release the chain linking him to his partner. Sasuke and the enemy ninja traded blows for a few moments, each landed hits. However, Sasuke started to slow down and eventually was knocked down, where the missing nin pounced his bladed gauntlet raised to kill Sasuke, who was on his back breathing heavily and fighting to stay conscious as he fought the poison he hadn't noticed was on the missing nin's claws until it was too late. Naruto's mind blanked as he drew his katana and used a chakra-enhanced leap to charge into the missing nin, knocking him away. As they collided in midair, Naruto stabbed his blade completely through the missing nin's body, sliding in between two ribs and piercing through his heart before the blade exited the missing nin by his shoulder. He was dead before he hit the ground with Naruto on top of him. Naruto froze for a moment as the fact that he just took a life started to flood his mind, but he ruthlessly shoved it aside. His team might still be in danger. Sakura might still be in danger. He didn't have time to let what he had just done affect his performance. With a supreme mental effort, Naruto stood up, sliding his blade from the man on the ground in front of him, and looked around him, eyes scanning for more threats. When he spotted none and made a clone whom he gave a capture seal to and sent off to seal up the unconscious missing nin as he moved to Sasuke, who had passed out, and picked him up before rushing to Sakura, who left her protection jutsu fall as Naruto neared. "Looks like poison, Sakura, can you handle it?" he asked as he quickly made 4 clothes which took up protective stances around them. "I can try," she replied grimly as she knelt down next to Sasuke and got to work. "Very nicely done, all of you," Kakashi's voice called out as he walked out of the trees, his book still in hand. "Thank you, sensei," Naruto said, still on guard, not the least bit surprised at his sensei's arrived, unlike Tazuna, who was looking at him in shock. But you died," Tazuna said, his eyes wide, and Kakashi just pointed over to where they had supposedly died. On the ground was a log cut into several pieces. "Ninja trick," Kakashi explained simply and walked over to Sasuke, letting Tazuna try and wrap his mind around what had just happened. "How is he, Sakura?" Kakashi asked, hiding his surprise to see Sakura's hand glowing a soft green as she ran them over the shallow cuts that had been made on Sasuke's arms. "He will live, sensei. I believe even without me he would live, though it would take a few days for his body to fight off the poison. It isn't particularly lethal, more debilitating and painful. I am pulling it out of body right now, though I don't have the skill to reverse the damage it has already done. He will be weak for at least a few hours but should be back to full strength by noon tomorrow," she reported without looking up as drops of purple liquid started to leave the cuts and pool in the palms of her glowing hands. Once done, Sakura transferred the poison into a glass vial which she pulled from her hip pouch and sealed it before returning it to her pouch for later study. "He can be moved now, sensei, and he should wake within the hour." "Good, Naruto, you carry him. We will make camp in the woods at least until he recovers." "Yes, sensei." Naruto slung Sasuke on his back. They all moved towards the forest. "Oh, and Tazuna, you have some explaining to do." A panicked look crossed Tazuna's face, and the interrogation of what was this mission was truly about began. Behind the group, Naruto's clone ran to catch up, dragging the unconscious missing nin, who was wrapped in chains that are sprouted from the tag placed on his chest. Sakura was watching Naruto with a very worried expression as he slowly cooked for both her and himself. His face was blank, as if devoid of all emotion, and he moved robotically. He had seemed fine up until only a few minutes ago. They had found a clearing only a little ways from the road and had quickly set up camp, or at least she and Naruto had. Naruto also sent some clone guards into the woods around them and set 3 clones to guard their prisoner. Kakashi was still talking to Tazuna about what was really going on in Wave and hadn't taken part in preparing the camp. The truth was that a man named Gato had a stranglehold on the wave country and was beating its people into the ground. The bridge he was making was the country's only real hope, and Gato wants him dead before he finishes it. As a team, well, without Sasuke, who was still unconscious, they had decided to go ahead with the mission. Their teamwork was such that they should be able to protect Tazuna from even a Junin-level shinobi until Kakashi could deal with them. So they believed the mission to be within their abilities. A hand suddenly landed on Sakura's shoulder and she jerked in surprise, looking up to see her sensei looking down at her, then glancing up at Naruto. A long moment later and Kakashi crouched down to be level with Sakura where she sat on a log and whispered softly so that Naruto a few feet away couldn't hear. The first kill is always hard to work through. I want you to take him to your shared tent when he finishes the food and get him to talk about it. It likely he will break down and cry, he may even need to throw up. Both are common reactions to the first kill, but at least he has you here for him. Offer support and help him reason out why the kill was necessary. Sakura practically had tears in her eyes as she realized what was wrong with Naruto, and she felt a whole new sense of guilt wash over her. She should have realized that it was the kill that was upsetting him, should have realized what he was feeling after such a thing. Yet she had sat here at a complete loss about what was upsetting him. "Thank you, sensei," she whispered back as she stared at the floor. "He is tough, Sakura, and so are you. He will make it through this tonight, and when it is your turn to take a life he will be there for you, have no doubt." It was very rare to see Kakashi this serious and insightful, and Sakura found she favored this version of Kakashi over any other she had seen. At her nod, Kakashi stood and wandered back towards the bridge builder. A few minutes later found Sakura and Naruto sitting opposite each other inside their tent, each with a bowl of ramen in their laps and eating in silence. Naruto's gaze was still distant and unfocused, though the grief was starting to become visible in his eyes. When he stopped eating, Sakura sighed and put her bowl aside, then gently took Naruto's and set it aside as well. She could see it in his eyes. He was lost in thoughts and barely realized what was going on around him. She called his name a few times softly and he didn't react. After a long moment, she sighed and moved to the entrance of their tent and sealed the entrance close before channeling chakra into the seal array that was sewn into the tent. No sound would now escape the tent. She quickly disrobed, piling all her armor and clothes neatly on the floor of the tent before looking over to see Naruto's eyes fixed on his ass. She felt flood her body at the attention even in the serious atmosphere in the tent. Every time Naruto stared at her ass like that, her body just burned in happiness and longing. Shaking her head slightly to clear her lust-clouded thoughts, she moved back to Naruto, whose eyes were now fixed on her chest, flicking to her face a few times but mostly on her chest. She stood in front of him for a moment, soaking in his attention until she saw his thoughts return to his first kill. The grief once more clouding his eyes, and she quickly sat in his lap to grab his attention again, nuzzling into his neck. She knew her body always got his attention, and it was the main reason she undressed, to pull him from his deep thoughts and focus his mind on her. "Talk to me, Naru-kun. Let it out. I am here for you and I will never leave, no matter what you do," she murmured into his ear, and immediately strong arms wrapped around her in an embrace so tight it slightly hurt, though Sakura kept her silence and kept up her gentle nuzzling of his neck, waiting for him to speak. "I killed him," he eventually spoke in aching grief. "I didn't think, I didn't feel, I just did it. My body moved and then it was over and he was dead on the ground. Looking back, I feel like a monster, or a true demon." Naruto's voice started shaking towards the end, and Sakura felt some warm tears land on her bare upper back. "That's what we trained for, Naruto," Sakura assured him softly as she started to unbuckle his armor. "We train and train and train so that if our minds can't keep up, our bodies still do what needs to be done. What happened doesn't make you a demon. It means you were able to do what needed to be done, where someone weaker would not have been able to." As she spoke, she slowly undressed Naruto and pushed him back onto the sleeping bag behind him. Unzipping it, she slipped both their naked bodies inside as Naruto started sobbing in earnest, clutching her painfully to him as he buried his face into her bare chest. Sakura knew this was a completely horrible time to notice her growing S and to feel the emotion of joy at seeing his face between her S she hadn't even noticed were forming yet was completely out of place for the situation, but she couldn't help the soft smile that formed on her lips for a brief moment before worry once again filled her face and she held Naruto close to her. "I didn't need to kill him," She eventually heard him say through his tears, and Sakura weaved her fingers into his hair and held his head closer. Of course you did, Naruto. He was about to kill Sasuke. If you didn't kill him but you just knocked him out of the way, then you would have no longer had the element of surprise, and his skill was impressive seeing as how easily he dealt with Sasuke. Killing him was assured and safe, letting him live to put us all at risk. Naruto held her tighter at his words and rubbed his face against her ass, causing her to shiver but she quickly refocused back on the task at hand. She could push him to play with her developing S later, and with the way he had been staring at her ass, maybe she could get him with that too. However, now was not the time. But I didn't need to kill him. I knew Kakashi was watching. He would have saved Sasuke. But in the moment I forgot all about that and I just acted. And I'm glad you did. This seemed to freeze Naruto for a moment, and Sakura continued. You acted to save your teammate and you did what was needed to when you needed to do it. And I am proud of you for it, not for taking the life but for doing what needed to be done, even if it required you to take a life. Naruto's sobs quieted as he listened to her, and eventually his breathing evened out and Sakura shifted to look at his face. She found him asleep and she smiled softly, kissing the top of his head before laying her head back and just holding him. That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.